Now, Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president. Kellyanne, thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Bret.
Let me start with what's getting headlines. And the Washington Post story that got a lot of headlines. You just heard John report it, that the headline says, Trump dictated son's misleading statement on meeting with Russian lawyer. We heard what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said. Did the president dictate those words?
The president said that he weighed in the way any father would on the statement. He wasn't part of the email chain. He wasn't part of the meeting, certainly. We all know that nothing came of the meeting. There was no follow-up. There was no attempt to collude. Jared Kushner last week, I thought, did a masterful job of making a statement and certainly sharing what he knew behind closed doors with the relevant committees in the House and Senate, Bret. And the gravamen of that is he had texted an assistant and said, this meeting is basically worthless. Can you find a way to get me out? And so I know that Russia, as a coverage, has been lessening over the last week because I think people understand there's no evidence of collusion. We were promised Watergate. We got ordered nothing. And in addition, you now see the big Russia stories, if any, are this Fusion GPS getting money from the Russian government to assemble some phony dossier to try to hurt candidate Trump. That, I think, will continue to be investigated and should. When we think of Russia around here, we think of Hillary Clinton giving up 20% of the uranium rights, Bill Clinton get $500,000 in speaking fees. And one last thing. I think Bloomberg did a great job a couple weeks ago. Wall Street Journal followed up in a story. 6% of Americans said Russia is the most important issue to them and their families. 75% of the coverage had been about Russia. There's a huge disconnect between what people say is important to them and what they're being told is important to them.
Well, let me just clean up a couple things. Sarah said that there's nothing wrong in the original statement by Donald Trump Jr., but obviously it left off the emails that he later released that said that it was about finding information about Hillary Clinton. And then you have this White House advisor who has this quote, "This was unnecessary." Now someone can claim he, the president, is the one who attempted to mislead. Somebody can argue the president is saying he doesn't want to say the whole truth.
That sounds like a leak. We're trying to cut down on those, and I hope that person is found out. Look, let's review. The lawyers who are really involved here have said that they will take most of the questions here, and they should. I was not on that trip. I was not part of that conversation. But the president weighed in because fathers do that, and Don Jr. has since made a number of different statements through his lawyers and on his own in a TV, in your network's interview, where he has tried to clarify some things. But I think, again, everybody should look at what did or did not come of that meeting. Look, I was the campaign manager for the winning part of the campaign, and if I needed negative information about Hillary Clinton, I looked no further than Hillary Clinton. You certainly didn't need to go to Moscow. You could just see what she was saying every day. No optimistic economic message for America.
So the administration has repeatedly said, the Vice President, the Secretary of State today, that the President will sign this sanction bill. It's been sitting on his desk. When do you think he'll sign it?
And it's a sanctions bill, remember, too. It's Iran, it's North Korea, it's Russia. And the president has indicated that he will sign it soon, shortly, perhaps this week. And although it's something that he will sign, he was not happy with the first iterations. He thinks that it got improved. And so he intends to sign it. It was passed with overwhelming bipartisan support.
So August 9th is the last day to sign the bill or veto it, and then the 10th, if the president does not veto the bill, the sanctions bill becomes law.
Correct.
Without his signature. Is that a possibility?
Well, it's a possibility, but he intends to sign it in short order.
Okay. What about the shakeups here? You've been asked a lot of questions about the staff shakeups. You have to concede that this was there's a lot going on in the early days of this administration. The president touted on the campaign trail that he was really good at hiring the best people. When critics say, what does this show about this White House, how do you respond?
He has many talented men and women who work here and throughout his administration. His cabinet is handpicked by him, and you see amazing men and women, Bret, who are sacrificing mightily to serve here, away from their families, away from economic commercial success, frankly, doing that. And at the senior staff level here, we really focus on who's here and not who's not, and what we can do every single day. It's already been a busy 2 days here. Today, with the Small Business Administration's 65th anniversary, the president talking about, which is irrefutable, that the Dow Jones is hitting its highest record ever, that it's had 26 or 27 record closes since he was sworn in. We see the consumer confidence numbers are way up. The GDP in the second quarter was 2.6%. This is a president that promised it would be 3% in the first couple of years, or the first few months. It's already at 2.6%. That matters to America. What matters to America is not who has a job in the White House, but who has jobs out in America. And when you see the investments Foxconn, for example, made here last week, 3,000 jobs, billions of dollars. There are many talented people who are working hard here every single day, and we're focused on that.
I want to get to a couple of specifics on Capitol Hill, but first, when will the White House issue guidance to the Pentagon on the transgender ban?
That is coming, and as you know, the president last week made known what the policy will be, and he's expected to issue the guidance, issue order, and he has promised, he has pledged, as those other stakeholders have, Bret, to work together to actually implement the policy.
So he meant what he said in the tweet, that it was a transgender ban, and not just stopping to pay for the surgery transitions.
He meant what he said in the tweet.
Okay. Capitol Hill, healthcare. Today, there's a bipartisan effort to restart healthcare. What's the thought of the White House?
We're pretty hopeful about healthcare because it is a moral imperative as well as a campaign promise. This president's just not going to abandon the over 20 million Americans who do not have healthcare as you and I stand here. The 6.5 million who decided to pay about $3 billion in taxes and penalties to the IRS rather than get basic Obamacare. The governors who are asking for more flexibility, the $45 billion in opioid funding that was in that Senate bill, the original Senate bill. There are so many great features of healthcare reform that should be easy, but some of the most popular ones require 60 votes in the Senate. The cross-state line sale of health insurance, the drug pricing, the associated health plans where different individuals who don't get employer-based insurance and don't get government-based insurance coverage, Bret, can pool together and assume the cost and the risk, share the cost and the risk.
So the bipartisan path is the one that you want to go?
That may be one possibility. That certainly is one possibility.
I mean,
so
that's
far,
what senators are saying they can do.
And we're reaching out to governors as well. The governors have been, some governors have been very involved in finding out what we could do in the future through block grants, perhaps. Senator Graham, Senator Cassidy have been working on that.
And Rand Paul's executive orders, you think that's a possibility?
That's a possibility. Right, we're listening to everyone.
Let me real quick turn to how do you get Democrats to vote for a continuing resolution in September and to raise the debt ceiling in September? And how do you avoid a government shutdown? I mean, if you look at the days, there's just not a lot there, Kellyanne.
There are very few legislative days left. That is correct, Bret. So I'm wondering if between now and then, the end of the legislative session, if the Democrats will stop obstructing and stop resisting everything. We have a welcome mat here. We would like their help on health care, on the debt ceiling, on any budgetary consideration, on infrastructure, on tax reform. We would like the Democrats to do their jobs as well, which is they've got people in their states who are suffering, who they represent, who don't have health insurance, who are part of the millions of women in this country who are looking for a job, part of those unskilled labor force, that if they can just get something like the apprenticeship program that the president has put forth to dignify all types of career choices. Getting the Democrats to do what's right by their constituents is as simple as saying, we welcome you, and we don't think obstruction and resistance is much of a message. They have a responsibility to their constituents. Look, 25 Democratic senators have to defend their seats next year. 10 in states that Donald Trump won, 5 he won comfortably with double digits. They're going to have to go home and face their voters. If they think they're going to blame a government shutdown on the most active president in recent memory, then they're giving up the wisdom of their own voters. I trust people to see who's actually standing in the way.
Kellyanne, we appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be out here next Tuesday if you want to send anybody else down.
You got it. Thank you, sir.